So in this one, we're going to be talking about sorcery and witchcraft, and that's found in the Bible because oftentimes there's parallels that have to deal with medications that people believe on certain forms, especially psychiatric medicines that are targeting to involve mind-altering substances that could be disconnecting people from their spiritual nature. And in my case, I found myself in places where it was just striking to me with what was going on with me that none of these things that were given were going to have an ability to draw the parallel between what's happening to me and feeling like if it was something to deal with the medication, that it was witchcraft, sorcery, or manipulation through unnatural means. And the reason I say that is because even if I had a friend poisoning me up at the time with arsenic abuse that would cancel out or cause for more problems in my life, the Bible specifically warns us, and it contains passages that speak about the sorcery and deception here, often relating to the spiritual corruption and practices that lead people away from God and not towards God. And I beg to differ. I believe that we're supposed to be people that are spiritual beings and going towards God, not away from God, and going towards God and not leading us away from the spiritual teachings there, and also just leading us into the world's care, which is, if you ask me, it's junk science. It doesn't really have any kind of weight on what the Bible is actually suggesting here. And so first I want to bring up Galatians 5:19 through 21. I'm just going to read it out of the King James Version. It reads, "Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murderers, drunkenness, revelings, and the such alike, of the which I tell you before, as I have told you in the time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God." And in this passage, it's mentioned witchcraft. It's one of the things that are listed in the works of the flesh, which some people interpret as not just literal witchcraft, but from any of the other forms of unnatural manipulations, including the misuse of substances that alter the mind and spirit. And you can think whatever you want there. I wholeheartedly believe that these things do change us in ways that we don't understand the chemical makeup. And so I personally don't believe in going to that level when when we're called away from those things, and it says that these and the such things that these will not inherit the kingdom of God. And so I stand up with the truth on the fact that you don't need mind altering medications. You don't have a brain problem. And especially if you're in a situation like I was in, because I wholeheartedly believe now that I was being poisoned, and those are the things that were making me feel those ways. And then I wasn't able to escape what was happening to me or get the reasons of me figuring it out to be able to fight it on my own. And so I went in and dealt with taking these drugs, and then upon taking these drugs, like, I just got worse. I did not get better. So as far as the way people could see it, I got better because I got more quiet. But that was just basically me unable to figure things out and unable to reason that, like, I could get out of this depression, because it wasn't a depression. It wasn't a chemical imbalance in my head at all. It was very, very much to deal with the environment and the things that were being done to me. And so that's not depression. That's just you have assholes around you, and you really need to figure out how to move away from them. So the next part I want to bring up is the Greek word for sorcery. And the Greek word for sorcery was known as pharmakia, and that's really closely related to the pharmacy, pharmaceuticals. So in the Bible, particularly in the New Testament, the Greek word pharmakia is translated into sorcery or witchcraft. The word is rooted in the terms like pharmacy and pharmaceuticals, which can suggest that the use of drugs for unnatural purposes is linked to the biblical concept of that sorcery, which is what I kind of do relate it to, is because in Revelations 18:23, for an example, it says, For by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. And that's in the end of times. Revelations is pinpointing like the times that we're heading into or times that we're living in. And if you ask me, these sorceries have done that very thing. They've deceived all nations. And so the verse here just talks about the destruction of Babylon and how the sorcery was used to deceive nations. Some people interpret this as an allegory for the deception and control that can come from a chemical or unnatural influences in the modern world. The next part is spiritual warfare and Jesus' authority. In Ephesians 6:12 reads, For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, and against the rulers of darkness, or against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. This passage speaks directly to spiritual warfare for the believers in Jesus Christ, because it affirms that our truest battle is against these spiritual forces that operate behind the scenes, including those that might use things like psychiatric drugs or other forms of manipulation to oppress or be able to control the population. And Luke 10:19, along with the same spiritual warfare and Jesus' authority, reads, Behold, I give unto you the power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. In this one, it reinforces that Christ believers have the power to overcome any form of demonic attack, deception, or harm that might include the spiritual effects of those unnatural or harmful substances. And what I want to mention here is that one thing that I did link up to find is that all medications, or a lot of medications, use marijuana, or it's a compound that's made from the marijuana plant somehow, and then they're also mixed in with I know there's a chemical compound. There's chemical compounds, I should say, and then um, the fluoride. And the fluoride, anything fluoridated, is to desensitize you. It desensitizes the brain, and then it desensitizes your skin. And the reasons that they want to desensitize your skin are awe-striking in and of itself. They want to get things into your body that are producing things like cancer when it's been proven, and there have been medical doctors that have treated cancer and removed cancer completely based on them attacking the parasites that cause cancer, and again going after the root cause of whatever that cancer is stemmed up from. And so lastly here, I just want to talk about, why do these things exist? From a biblical worldview, things like these toxic chemicals or manipulative practices may exist as a part of the fallen world. After sin had entered into the world, corruption there followed, and including the ways that people seek to control and seek to harm others. And so they've been using poisons for a long time, multitude of ages. Genesis 3:17 through 19 reads that after the fall of Adam and Eve, the world was cursed, leading to a reality where mankind now faces spiritual battles, illnesses, and deception. And I would say we experience high deception, like a lot of deception here. And 1 John 5:19 reads, "And we know that we are of God, and the whole world lieth in wickedness." This reflects to the idea that the world, under the influence of these evil forces, is filled with wickedness, deceitfulness, and including those that are both harmful to both body and soul, or your spirit, such as the misuse of these medications or other substances can take. So if you believe your viewpoint of psychiatric medications and toxic substances is a part of that larger scheme of spiritual deception or manipulation, it aligns with the biblical warning about that sorcery and about that witchcraft and also about the spiritual warfare, all three things mentioned in the King James Bible, that it speaks against these forces and gives Christians the assurance that Jesus Christ has the authority to overcome them. And in my life, I've realized and have been brought out of many situations where I feel like these unnatural substances and even those said poisons, where I feel like were given to me, aimed to control me or harm me, was a force of sorcery that I resisted. And because of doing such things, I was able to fight harder. If I was just taking those medications, there's no way I would have been able to do what I did to like get into this house at all. And so, in my viewpoint and in my personal opinion, exposing these things as a crime against humanity aligns myself with the teachings of Jesus Christ and how essential it is in both fighting for our physical and our spiritual selves, is putting us in danger to involve ourselves into seriously, because speaking the truth about these things or even speculating on the Bible in this way, it's just a framework that's solidifying our stance in and to have biblical support, or like go to our Bibles for support. But again, the Bibles are ripped out of jails. The Bibles are no longer in hotels. The Bibles are just being ripped out of everywhere. And that, I believe, is happening with intent, because they understand that the power of the word is true, or the evil forces anyway, understand that the power of the word and speaking these things in Jesus' name is true. And so I just want people to be aware of the fact that I believe it's both essential for the spiritual side and for our emotional side and for just our well-being physically to be able to attack these spiritual dangers that are in the world. And it's not like we're attacking them, we're just taking a stance for ourselves. And just because we're taking that stance for ourselves, it's just too much. And oftentimes people are censored and riddled out from being able to speak out at all. And that's oftentimes what happens in places that I've seen personally, where, I mean, I've seen people that, if you ask me, they're never coming back. They're just gone. I mean, and they've they've been told that they're this or that, and they take it that they are, and then they just take the medications, and you can just see that they're a blank human being. It's like a gun that just has blanks in it, because the gun that they otherwise could be is just damaged. There's nothing there. They're just shells of themselves. And so I think it's important, because it pushes people into urban blight when you go up against things that surround things like the pedophile community and these crimes that are sex trafficking kids. It's real sick. And and I just want to say that my alignment with that also goes as well as like to my findings in the recent. And I don't want to think these things, but I can't help but feel them when I pray to the Lord and the Lord gives me an answer. It's like, regardless on whether or not I want that answer or not, that's the answer that I'm being given. So I don't know. I just want people to understand that. And it's like, oh, that sounds so schizophrenic, right? That you can hear back from the Lord. And it's not like that. It's not like that at all. It's just paying attention to what you feel is good from your teachings. And then sometimes you do. You get a feeling into your stomach. Oh, well, and that's another thing I did pray for, is just to be able to have the Lord's own discernment over my life and my tummy, so that I wasn't listening to myself, because myself was made stupid and I was just feeling so lost. And then, honestly, if you look up arsenic poisoning, of course it makes you fucking stupid. You can't reason through anything like 2 minutes or a minute. You just can't, like, you're just in the fray. And I believe that at times in my life that this would have been able to be proven by other people. And so I've also been putting together, like, for the people that know me, to, like, if they remember anything, just to jot it down, because these things can help me. And, like, even if they had done something wrong to me, like, I remember things, like, I forgive when it's like, if someone, like, brought something upon somebody to do and to act like, well, you're forgiven if you go to the Lord about it. And if you really fervently feel bad for your actions, you can go to the Lord about those things and say, like, Lord, I didn't know, and Lord, I was made silly to think that I would be able to get away with this, or whatever it be. Like, you want to just take those actions to the Lord in a fervent way and ask for forgiveness. And no matter what they are with me, I've already forgiven you. I've already personally forgiven you, so that you can do that and take it upon yourself to go talk to the Lord. But that's up to people, not me. It's up to everyone that's treated me wrong. So, and anyway, I just wanted to talk about these things because I believe it's a really important thing to be aware of our spiritual awareness with Christ. And I think it's an important thing to study in the times that we live in, what sorcery and witchcraft is in the Bible, because these things are mentioned for the end of times, a lot of it. And I don't know, I can't help but believe that we are in the end of times. If we're not in the end of times, then they're, the the sources of creating that sorcery are definitely trying to push Christians into feeling like it's the end of time. But I personally believe that praying against it and praying it back is actually a good form of attack. If you go into spiritual battle and you say you're dealing with, say, 10 things that you can actually name, that you can actually, like, feel are happening, even, you might not know they're happening, but you can see it happening, or you could, recollect areas of your life to, like, make whatever you're talking about to the Lord make sense. It doesn't matter how you go to the Lord. The only way it matters is going to people with opinion, or going and putting your opinion out on Facebook, or things like that are actually on your mind, because those are ways that you can get censored and get attacked. But the Lord is not gonna, like, treat you with disdain because you're unsure about something that's going on in your world. And so if you're unsure about those things, take them in that way to the Lord, and allow the Lord to be able to show you these things, and ask the Lord to bring you to the information, or bring you to the videos, or bring you to the information, or bring you to the correct passages in the Bible. All of which, if you pray in that way, in a fervent way, and say the Lord's discernment is way, way up in heaven, right? And we are flesh. We are flesh and bone. We have organs and a heart, and arteries and blood vessels and veins. But what we do in the flesh without the Lord is wrong. because the Lord has given us every cell in our bodies to be blessed. And so when you're denying your flesh, say for things like, a sexual immorality, if you're denying yourself from any kind of sinful way that has to do with sexual immorality, you should be able to go to the Lord about it and explain the way you're feeling and why you're feeling that way. And in a fervent way, what I recommend is praying for the Lord's own discernment to be added into our own bellies so that we can be given warnings, or we can be given a signal or a sign, or anything. But with what's happened with me in that prayer is I've been able to feel 100% that I can have a real relationship with Christ like none other. Like I can't even have that kind of relationship with family, friends, community, people I work with, or anywhere. I can't have that kind of relationship with anybody because I know that the Lord is forthright and forthcoming with me 24/7, and I don't know that all the time with people. And it's just a discerning factor that tells me that what has been added to my belly since I prayed that is accurate. And then when I move on that accuracy, I see how it protects my life. And then even when I go into spiritual battle, and like I was being poisoned, and when I did experience attacks, or that last chemical attack, I thought I was done for. I legitimately did. I thought I was done for. I was seeing white closing up around me, and like I felt really constricted. And when I read cyanide, wow, it's just I don't know what it is, but that's all I can say. I feel it's wholeheartedly criminal for me to basically go to the police saying I want to just make a police report, and then it's like going towards mental health when like I'm worried about my heart and would actually be going into the doctors for that. It seemed to me like it was being prodded to push me in a way that would leave me into the same places I was in before, which I've spoken out on other videos, where I was in Regions Hospital and they were doing ungodly things to try and pressure me and pressure other people into lashing out. And when you do lash out in those places, it gives them reason to keep you there longer, and it also gives them reason to put you inside of solitary confinement. And with what I was being told by other people, what happened to people in solitary confinement, I was like, what? What? You mean they can get away with that here? And it was like, yeah, if you see that you bring people in new after 8 o'clock that are purposefully then driven to go try and save lady's life instantly, and if they're trying to save lady's life instantly without getting to the next day for, someone that was smart, that was in there being held against their will, that they could go to those people and they could be like, hey, this is what's going on, this is what we think is going on, you can make up your own mind, but we're strongly urging you not to go and run, because everyone that goes running to go try and save this lady's life, we don't see them again, we don't know where they go. And so either way, I think it's a really psychologically damaging thing for a community of doctors, psychiatrists, therapists, or whatever have you, to be doing that to people, and then suggesting that they have the answer with like some anecdote. Like, here, you want to take this anecdote. Uh, I don't know. Plus, my tongue swelled up in my sleep, and then if I was just to take it one more day, it was signaled into my belly that I would have died, or I could have died, or what have you. And I just don't think that these people cared. That's all I can say. That's all I can tell you. There was no love in that place. There was no love on that floor, and everything that you felt strictly to push people into more blight and to more anxiety, and just strangle them. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm going with, and that's what I'm saying happened. And I just don't feel like I don't think it's a unreasonable thing for me to come out here and say these things And especially when the lady was like, good luck getting anyone to listen to you. And, yeah, good luck getting any, or I think it was said, um, yeah, no, it was said, good luck getting anyone to listen to you. And I just said, okay, well, I'll just finish that off with Jesus Christ's name then, because I need a lot of luck, and I'll good luck getting on anyone to listen to me then in Jesus Christ's name, lady. You really have a problem with Jesus Christ, so that's all.